Anyway, you made me think of another show that's not on my list, but I'm gonna rattle off a few that are honorable mentions. I know. Don't you look at your watch.
I'm just checking what we're doing.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Incomplete Geeks, a gay geek podcast where we talk about all sorts of geeky things, some of which we know a lot about, other things our knowledge. Fuck, I'm starting over. I mean, we could just keep it. Anyway.
No, you need to start over again.
Right.
That lost energy. Come on, here we go. And
oh my god, I was going to do that. Hello and welcome to Incomplete Geeks, a gay geek podcast where we talk about all sorts of geeky things. Sometimes our knowledge is tip-top, other times our knowledge is a little bit
incomplete.
That's right. I am John. That's Nick. We are your co-hosts today. We talk about reboots and have as much of the big booty rebooties as we can manage.
You know what we should have done? When you fucked up, we should have said, oh, Reboot.
Oh, yeah.
I had that one prepared because that was going to be my bit.
Well, I was going to make a comment about like rebooting our podcast, but
big booties for the rebooties.
Big booties for the rebooties. But I wanted to, in my brain, I was like rebooties, but then I thought, no, booties are like tiny things you put on the feet of babies. Booties. How do I make sure that it's booty?
I don't think our listeners are thinking about baby feet. Unless you are. If you are, don't write in. I don't want to know.
Yes, so we're going to talk about
reboots
today.
Just for context, we're getting drunk.
Yes, this is going to be a drunk rant. We are due for a good drunk rant, Nicholas.
Jesus Christ. The last one was Wolverine, which I enjoyed thoroughly because
a lot of our viewers did as well.
Wolverine sucks. But that's been a long time. I feel like that's been, I don't know.
I don't remember.
I don't remember anything that's happened.
This is episode 60, by the way. I think. We always say a number.
Yes.
It is, yeah. The way you looked at me.
We wrote them down. I wrote them down. I was like, John will appreciate that. I'll put it in
I'll
put it in the notion.
I do.
But yay!
Yeah, so good.
Welcome to episode 60.
Happy birthday to you.
Thanks. Justin Timberlake.
And Justin.
Yeah. And Minnie Driver, maybe, I think.
Maybe.
I don't know.
If you don't know what we're talking about, dear listener, then you need to listen to more of our episodes. So you know why we're mentioning this.
Well, a celeb birthday.
Yeah. Let's talk about reboots.
We're going to talk about reboots because it does seem that everything is being rebooted.
There's so many reboots
lately.
Nowadays.
There's so even. I mean, it's not technically a Geekery of the Week, but
tell us why you had the idea. It was your idea to talk about reboots for this episode.
So it was in the news a couple of weeks ago, or the news. The news. I don't read the news. It was in
the TikTok.
It was on TikTok.
I know what
people were just discovering that Dolly Parton was a silent producer on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, both the original film and the TV show.
I didn't know that part. I thought I saw her in the news recently about. Anyway, I didn't know the history of it.
And she was saying there are still talks going on about a reboot,
a Buffy reboot,
a reboot of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Which, why don't we start there? Let's talk about it. What were your thoughts on a reboot for Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Well, my thoughts are manifold. I know very little about what's been
nothing.
announced.
We don't know anything. It's just talks. It's been going on for a while.
Just the idea of a Buffy reboot. Like, I think that there are different ways you can handle a reboot, and we will talk about all sorts of different kinds of reboots today. I think you have to just do it faithfully. So, okay. So the bottom line, TLDR for this episode. If you do it well, it's great. If you don't, it's shit. But I think the key...
Yes, and we are, surprisingly for us, or for me anyway, we're covering ones that are actually good. Not just ones we want to bitch about. There are some of those as well.
There's a couple.
There's some of those in there.
Is it going to be a drunk rant? We'll have drunk ranting moments, but we'll have good moments as well.
Like good rant.
Yes.
That's a good point. Yes, if it's a faithful reboot adaptation, it's great. I don't think you can do it with Buffy.
You don't think so?
Or you shouldn't. What you should do is a fucking continuation.
Right. Okay. So I've got two questions there that you're starting in my head already. First of all, what makes a reboot successful / you said the word faithful. Like what does a producer, a writer have to do going into a quote unquote reboot pitch, for example, to make it sure that it's good, it's successful?
It has to have. I'm thinking of there's a few in this list that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, we can use Buffy as like a good example kind of thing. Like what do the Buffy writers have to do?
It has to be a relevant modern version of it. So it has to be, if something's old of its time, which Buffy definitely is, it has to be modernized to make it fresh. Otherwise, it just feels pointless. But it also has to be really faithful to the original. So it doesn't have to be, and it has to be in a good story, not just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So there's a story you want to tell in this universe with these characters that works really well. Modernized or adapted so it's not just nostalgia.
Right.
But faithful or nods to it or appreciation of the original.
Yeah. I think
obviously things will change in reboots. And if it's a reboot, not a continuation or whatever, things will change and that's absolutely fine. But because, times are different, that sort of stuff. But if you change an entire character's whole being, like, just because you don't want it or you want to do something different, it's like, well, then why have that character? Why are you doing this reboot if you don't want those characters? You can change how the situation is. They have cell phones, they have different things, whatever.
Yeah. You can get rid of Xander. That's fine. That's
no
totally
one needs him.
Yeah. It sounds like what you're trying to say is like there's the franchise is kind of a tool for the storytellers to use to tell their story. And so if they're going to use the franchise, if they're going to use it to sort of propel what they want to say, great. As long as they are, like you said, faithful. And I think what you mean by faithful is just don't ignore the rules of the world that have been set up from the original. Could you imagine if, like, I don't know, like say we did say Buffy reboot came over and they said, oh no, it's not called a Hellmouth anymore. It's now called a hellhole or something like that. Like that would be that kind of thing is not faithful to the original. I don't know. That's a bad example maybe, but like if they changed something that didn't have any reason behind it.
I wouldn't care so much about that, but if they changed the fundamental part of the character, if she was still called Buffy and it was this character, but they made her completely different, it's like, well, that makes no sense. Just don't use her. Use a different Slayer because you can.
Well, if you introduce a character called Buffy and it's going to be an adaptation of the original in some way, you have less room to make your own adjustments, whatever. And then you're more like remake. You're not doing reboot. You're doing remake. If we're just telling the same story.
Oh my God.
With an updated.
Oh my God. How have we missed this point?
What?
Buffy was a reboot.
Buffy was a reboot
from the fucking film. Yes.
Yeah, I can take it. Yeah,
we're so dumb. Yeah, it was Buffy absolutely. They took the premise. They took the character of she is this LA Valley blonde girl who wants to be pretty and popular and have fun, but she has a calling, a destiny, and she resists at first. And then she goes along with it, and she's actually really good at it, and she saves the day. And they took that. The details changed. She was in a small town versus LA. Lots of it changed, but that's the quintessential core of the character. The style, the jokes, the sarcasm, and scary vampires. So yes, that is our first reboot.
There we go.
We should have talked about.
Like that was the base of the story, and then they took it because they had the TV format. They went because it was further.
They made it a TV format versus a film, so they had a lot more time to play with the character and do more interesting stuff, and it worked so much better. I think that Buffy is a good example of a reboot and not a remake or a revival. It's like we are ignoring that happened. It's not. Yeah, it's.
Well, I mean, not totally ignoring it in the way that. Well, I mean, it's
kind of ignoring.
I just don't. Maybe they're taking the story and they're kind of resetting it in a way. Like we're using this as a template. We're gonna make our own story.
What a really to make it a perfect reboot would have been if they'd given Christy Swanson like a cameo or a bit
that would have been so funny, yeah.
That would have been really faithful and honoring. Or Luke Perry. Or
I forgot he was in it.
Yeah. Or the dad.
What's the other one?
What's the Sutherland?
Donald Sutherland.
Donald Sutherland, not Kiefer, Donald.
Oh.
He was the Watcher in it. If they had any of them, like little bits in it throughout, that would have been amazing. And a little callback to the original. Yeah.
And then you kind of like...
But it wasn't necessary. It was
then you kind of towing the line of like, oh, is this the same universe as the film kind of thing? Because then that's kind of...
No, it doesn't need... No.
Is that a reboot? Okay.
No.
This ties into my first...
Wonderful!
My first point that I want to rant about.
Go!
So Buffy's Buffy. That's the impetus for this episode,
yes.
right? My first rant that I want to rant about is the word reboot.
Oh, for God's sake.
Can we fucking I hate the word reboot because it doesn't really mean anything anymore. It used to mean something and it kind of was taken away. And now people are interchanging it with remake, with revival. It's become sort of a fad word. And I'm annoyed with the word
Have you had reboot. It with that? I've had it with
reboot. Yeah, this is what I want to rant about. Because basically like I actually did some research for this episode. And like, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, a reboot. And I'm like, no, it's a remake. No, it's a revival. Like, what is a reboot?
What's the difference between a remake and a reboot?
I'm so glad you asked, Nicholas.
Okay.
You sold that so well. It's almost like it was a genuine question.
It was a genuine question.
I know it was. It really was. I saw it in your eyes. So I have a handy little article I want to read to you.
Okay.
And it's not even an article. It's just like a paragraph. And this is what a reboot is, because a lot of people do interchange reboots, revivals, remakes, whatever. And so I want to talk about reboots, and we can discuss other things, and we can discuss whether or not they are reboots, remakes, whatever.
But that's fine. Let's make our definition now.
Reboot. Yes, define your terms, sir. Reboot is perhaps the most commonly used term to describe new versions of previously produced films or shows over the past decade. A word that is so frequently used that many audiences now use it as a synonym for remaking any movie. However, the two words originally mean entirely different things. Reboot originally was conceived as a way to describe a complete reset to an older film's continuity. A reboot is usually refers to a franchise rather than a single film, and it involves a story that completely ignores, that's the word that it uses, so you're correct, all or some of the franchise's previous entities. And so there's certain elements like plot points, characters, locations might be similar to the original version of the story. A rebooted version is usually entirely new with little or no connection to what came before. So in other words, not the same universe.
Yes.
So a complete reset. And so the examples, a couple of the examples that it gives in here is Planet of the Apes. So you had like a classic film from the...
That's a remake.
60s? Anyway.
Yes.
It was See, I don't think that was a remake. I never saw the original.
The original, and then the Mark Wahlberg one was a remake because it's the same story.
Oh, was it? Oh, yeah, you're right. But then oh my God, fuck. I'm already wrong.
So then they carried it on. But that's a great example of a remake versus a reboot.
So the remake, I forgot about the Mark Wahlberg one. But that was a remake of the Charlton Heston film.
Yes.
And then they changed that into a franchise with
Andy and they Serkis continued and prequeled it.
So yeah, and then another example that it gives is, do you remember The Mummy? They tried to make that into
the Dark Universe.
The Dark Universe, exactly.
With Tom fucking Cruise.
Oh my God, can you believe it? So there was The Mummy, which was its own film. And then the Tom Cruise Mummy.
4 films, wasn't it?
The Brendan Fraser one was, oh no, you're right.
2, and then
The Scorpion King.
Poor The Rock.
Poor The Rock, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Poor CGI The Rock. That was a reboot. And it was intended to be a reboot to a new franchise. So the term reboot was meant to be like,
yes, because it wasn't like Tom Cruise didn't play Brandon Fraser's character.
Exactly.
It wasn't remaking the storyline. Like The Color Purple was a remake.
That was a remake, yes.
Because it's the same story, just
same
remade.
Yeah, same characters.
This is obviously rebooting the aspects of the universe, the characters, whatever, and doing something different with it.
Exactly.
Yes?
So exactly. That is reboot. Because other, it goes this, yeah. So that's all I want to say about reboot.
I think that's good.
Other films that are on the, in the gray area, like Jurassic Park. So they had the first film, then you had number 2, number 3. Okay, fine, this is something. And then when it was blank with Chris Pratt, Now, technically, it's the same universe, right?
It's a continuation.
Is it a reboot?
It's a continuation because they reference and Goldblum and then later all the others, they're all in it. So those events in the original films happened. It's just following on.
So I've seen things that call Jurassic Park a reboot. And this is why I hate the term reboot.
It rebooted because it the franchise. No, but it didn't. But it re-energized the franchise.
Revival. It was a sequel. It was a sequel that took like 20 years, whatever it was, to make. It's
like calling the Star Wars, The Force Awakens, a reboot. It's not. It's a continuation of the story within universe.
Because again, you have the same characters, and the majority of them are played by the same actors as well.
Yes, and they exist in that universe and the events that happened in the previous.
Yeah. And it's just in normal times we would call that like a sequel or a prequel or whatever. Like, stop calling these reboots. I'm annoyed that people call these like the Star Wars reboot, the Jurassic Park reboot.
Yeah, because they're trying to say that it's like rebooting, momentum behind that kind of those properties.
Here's another example.
Yeah,
Halloween. They were calling that a reboot as well, weren't they?
Never a reboot. It's the same story.
It's the same story.
Jamie Lee's in
Jamie Lee Curtis as I forgot her name now.
I don't even know. Brittany, Jemima,
Elise.
I don't remember. Christina.
I literally wrote an article about this once. Anyway, that was the first film
Yes, sure.
And it's not a reboot.
Wonderful. We're gonna be talking about a mix mash.
A mix mash, yes.
Of all of these, and then talking about whether they count as a continuation or a reboot.
Yeah.
Or a remake. Is that
revival, reboot, remake? Yeah.
Yeah. What's the difference between a revival and a reboot?
See, a revival. I'm so glad you asked, Nicholas. This is why we're so good together, right? A revival is like what we talked about Jurassic Park. I would call that a revival because it's a story that
like it's continuation. The Force Awakens, Grease 2.
Force Awakens is another one. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other examples. Like, here we go. Mary Poppins.
Multiple books, as I understand it from the Emma Thompson film, but those events happened in universe, so that is
that's a revival because we have Emily Blunt playing the same character.
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. But then I thought that was a remake because it's like kind of the same story, and you got like Lin-Manuel Miranda playing basically Dick Van Dyke's character.
But it's not.
It's a different character.
Yep.
Same concept.
But Ben Whishaw.
Exactly.
Is a character that existed in that universe.
He's the older version of the boy from the original, Michael, yeah.
Michael and Jenny.
So, revival.
Jenny.
And the thing is, like...
I forgot the kids' names.
Michael and June?
Jane.
Jenny.
Jennifer.
Jane.
Julie Andrews.
Jane. Is it just Jane and Michael?
Jane and Michael. Yeah.
Yeah.
Generic white English name.
Revival, I think, the term revival kind of refers to franchises. So, a way...
was probably hoping that it revived the Mary Poppins franchise, but I never made another one. Thank fucking God. I hated that film so much.
I haven't seen it.
I wanted to claw my eyes out. But if you liked it, great.
So let us know why. I think, and all these terms I think are interchangeable with TV shows as well. And to a certain degree, video games as well, but it's not quite often because obviously video games
is going to get really confusing.
Yeah.
Let's stick with movies and TV.
Cool.
For now.
Right.
Okay.
Those are my examples so far.
This is good. Okay.
Shall I keep going?
Let's go on our list. Let's power through.
Right.
So Mary Poppins, done. So we've done Buffy, done. The Mummy, done. Mary Poppins, done. What's next?
Evil Dead. What do you know about Evil Dead?
Absolutely nothing.
So what I understand is you have like the series of films again from like the previous few decades, whatever. And then Sam Raimi is remaking. I think he's on 2. But I forget who the character is. But it's Sam Raimi again doing his franchise again. And I'm not sure because I've not seen them, but people love them, and it's
massively nerd popular,
massively geeky, because all that Bruce Campbell stuff that he did back, and he's loved for it. And this franchise kind of is totally in the same vein. I think it's a reboot because Sam Raimi can now do the things that he couldn't do back then because of budget or CGI, whatever.
So he's taking the themes and concepts from the original film series and starting again.
I believe so, yes.
That counts as
again, I'm an incomplete geek. So
we're both incomplete geeks. So if that's wrong, we'd love to hear about it.
Yes.
So you can write in incompletegeekspodcast@gmail.com or contact us at incompletegeeks on Instagram and TikTok.
You're so quiet when you say that as well.
Carry on. That was giving you time to drink your drink, not in the microphone, because you're doing most of the talking. And there you go. You carry on. I'm going to refill our drink.
So another one I want to talk about. No, I don't want to talk about it. I just want to mention it. Is the Judge Dredd series, because that is another example of a film from a character. Wait, that's a comic book character too, right? It was. Yes. Okay. So all these adaptations made into films. There was Sylvester Stallone played the character as well, and then Carl Urban most recently. And they do like tiny tiny variations of the story, but it's the same characters for all of them. So, again, I've not seen it, so why the fuck is he talking about it? You might say. Thank you, but
we're talking about it because my housemate's boyfriend mentioned it on the way out, and we thought we should mention it.
That's the only reason.
Plus, Carl Urban is fucking hot.
Yes, he is.
Way hotter than Sylvester Stallone.
I look like him apparently.
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner is a revival.
Revival, because that's continuation.
Yeah, same story.
Okay.
I mean, again, revival is typically used for like franchises, because like how are you reviving something that is just one film? I would just call that a sequel.
Yeah, that's much.
And there's nothing wrong with calling it a sequel,
but it feels like because
decades.
It's so far, and the technology in filmmaking changed so much between the original coming out and the new one. It feels rebooted. That's probably why it was used a lot, because it's so dramatically different.
That's a good point, actually.
And it's so far away from the originals time-wise that it doesn't feel like a sequel, because things had to change technology-wise in order to do it. Again, I haven't seen either of these films, so
you've not seen Blade Runner? See, I've actually generally seen both of those, and I much preferred the recent one, the Blade Runner 2049. Yeah. And people who love I can rant a little bit about it. I'm going to rant about Blade Runner for a second.
Yes.
Hot take. I don't think it was that good. I mean, I get that it might have been like groundbreaking in its time, like a lot of films are, and I'm sorry if that means that I don't appreciate it for what it was at the time. Thematically, a lot of these things in Blade Runner are great, but it just dragged on. A lot of it just dragged on. And like, as a lot of iconic things, as what happens to a lot of iconic things, they're replicated a lot in other media.
Yeah.
And so if you're not there for the original happening of this spark of genius, whatever, you only see the repetitions of it. And then you lose track of like why the original was so good. So I think Blade Runner, I mean, a lot of good things in it. Like people go on about like Rutger Hauer at the end scene crying, and they're talking about this speech about a very nice speech in the, I'm going to fuck it up now. But it's like people comment on that scene when he talks about seeing something in the stars and they're all going to be vanishing like raindrops in the ocean, whatever, because he's going to die. He's a replicant. Like that kind of, I watched it and I was like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. And I think that Blade Runner 2049, because the director, who was Denis Villeneuve, who did the Dune films, as you know, and other things as well.
Oh.
Yes. Okay. So he directed Blade Runner 2049, and people can rightly complain about it.
Is that the speech?
Yes.
Read it.
Do you want to read
Dramatic reading. No, you do. You're the actor.
So when Rutger Hauer, I think it's Rutger Hauer. My God, why am I saying this? I'm so afraid of getting it wrong.
The whole premise of this podcast is that we get so many things wrong. That's fine.
Actually, I think you'll find it was
Dolph
Lundgren or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, Rutger Hauer. Fine. So he says when Deckard Cain finally catches up with him at the end of the movie, and because he's a replicant, and replicants are not allowed to sort of be free or whatever. He says, I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhäuser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time like tears in rain. That's what it was. And it's meant to be. Yeah, see, it's like, it's nice. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just been copied so many times.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've seen it too many times on Family Guy. I don't actually appreciate the original value of it.
Yeah, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But then 2049 was the Ryan Gosling film, and like, yeah, he's playing a Pinocchio who wants to be a real boy kind of thing. But like, I think he does it quite well because it's really hard to do a subdued performance, especially if you're playing a robot, whatever. But I thought the story was great. Like, I thought it went really well. I think it was beautiful. It took its time. People don't have patience for that kind of thing nowadays. And the music was fantastic. The atmosphere, I mean, people complained it was too long. Fine. Like, it takes its time. Turns out he's not the real boy that he thought he was. And it kind of, it just is a nice story. I much preferred it to the original. The end.
What about Tron?
Tron.
That's a
No. Again.
Make?
Boot? No, because Jeff Bridges was in it.
That's just another continuation.
Yeah, exactly. Revival. Another sort of sequel.
I'm really trying to find one.
Tron, again.
I thought of another one and I've forgotten it.
And I've not seen the original for I'm pretty sure I saw it when I was younger. But when I saw the recent one,
no.
Like, I think it was fine. I think it misstepped a lot in trying to sort of, I think it was trying too hard to start a franchise.
Yeah, it feels like it was of that era when everyone was so desperate to create an alternate version of the MCU or some sort of franchise that they could keep going, carrying
like
on.
The Dark Universe. Yeah, so it had a lot of good ideas in terms of what it means to be a computer program, or what it means to be alive, even, which are quite philosophical.
Have we got any actual reboots on this list? What's next on your list that's an actual reboot? Because we haven't.
Yeah. Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was a reboot.
Yep. As was Tom Holland's.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
But now that they all exist. That's not true.
No, fuck it. It's still a reboot. It's still a reboot.
It was intended as a reboot.
Yeah.
As was Tom Holland's Spider-Man. But now that they all exist within the same multiverse.
Because they are now all owned by the mouse.
But those events that happened in each of those films exist within that universe. That multiverse.
Same multiverse, I suppose. But I still hold that it was a reboot.
It was absolutely a reboot at the time. That's absolutely what it was done for. It didn't work though.
No, I watched the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I think it was it didn't feel right.
No,
and I didn't even see the second one because
you didn't miss out. It was fine.
Yeah. But that's a good example of a reboot, like a proper reboot.
Yeah, and yes, but it's also different because both are drawing on source material, the comic books.
Mm-hmm.
So when the Andrew Garfield's one came out, it wasn't so much necessarily having to draw on Tobey Maguire's one. It could draw from the comics.
Yeah.
In that they gave him web shooters rather than it coming out of his arm. So like it was actually a more faithful adaptation. But
yeah, that makes sense. And because Spider-Man has such a rogues gallery of villains, like they could use the opportunity to pull out different ones.
Pull out.
You're so gay.
All right, what else next? What you got?
Before we move on to TV shows.
A word from our sponsors. Oh no, we don't.
I was going to say, you made me think about something like a side note about why reboots exist now, because and I think you raised a good point where because technology has advanced and because we have new storytelling abilities, CGI nowadays is basically the same as animation. Like you can just draw stuff that your wildest dreams, whatever. It takes longer, and hopefully it looks better, but like it looks more realistic. Not better or worse, just looks different. So we are able to tell these stories that we couldn't tell before. So all the shows that we mentioned, like Tron and even The Mummy, like all this, because technology has come so far, we can. But what do you think about the way that people use nostalgia for a franchise or a film? Like, oh, I loved the original Tron. I'm going to go see this one, see what they're doing with it. And then they're disappointed because it's not the same, or because they didn't They were expecting one thing.
The whole reason reboots exist is because the millennial generation is obsessed with nostalgia. We're the first nostalgic generation. So
you think? Okay.
Because we didn't grow up in an internet age. But we came into the internet age. So the internet then started talking about things that have never been talked about on the internet before. So we kind of rediscover or find communities that like the same things we did, but didn't know we could talk about it. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It does.
So that's when everyone's like, oh, I love that show when I grew up. So it gets nostalgia behind it. And then it's a fucking wave of constant reboots because we're the nostalgia generation. What was the question?
The question was how does it tie in? How do people use the nostalgia to create a reboot?
They overuse it. Fucking Star Wars overuses it, which is a continuation and not a reboot. But oh my God, it's the perfect example of it. Like, rather than moving the fucking story along and telling new things, but honoring the original story, it's too much fan service.
Yeah.
So it's a really fine line between like honoring what you're
like the reason you liked it in the first place.
Yeah. Exactly. And not just pandering to it. Like, no, we don't need fucking Harrison Ford back. It's like, oh, look, here's the original guy who was
what are you trying to say?
Lando. And like, oh, and he's here in the desert. Like, fuck off. Tell a new fucking story. Everything doesn't have to link back to the original one. If you'd done a good story in the first place, if you had really honored what those characters of the universe that had made, that would really represent the nostalgia of it.
I'm trying to think of an example where what? Yeah. What
was finish your sentence first? Finish the sentence before I cut in.
I'm trying to think of an example of a TV show or not really a film. I'm trying to think of an example of a film or sequel of a film where it uses a nostalgic character in a good way and people fucking love it. And so makers will then see them that it will try to emulate that by bringing back like Emperor Palpatine because like, oh, people like him. People like it's going to be a shock or whatever instead of.
So I don't want to rush to the end point of what I think is the most perfect reboot of all time and possibly one of my favorite animated TV shows of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to go to it now because because I feel like it sets this is a good talking point because it does it so well. It's a good way to reference it on things that haven't done it well.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm going to talk about?
I do, but I only just realized that you're going to talk about something other than what I thought you were going to talk about before because you said you loved it and I forgot, oh, fuck yeah, there's a TV show as well. I thought you were talking about the Star Trek films.
Oh, no.
Which were a reboot.
Which sucked balls.
That's
not what I'm talking about.
Which we can rant about.
No. We'll talk about that later. No, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay. Let's transition to TV now.
No, this is the most perfect reboot for television that I've ever seen. An animated show. One of my favorites of all time. Ducktales.
Oh, you were going to end on Ducktales?
No, I wasn't going to end on Ducktales, but there is no better reboot of a show than Ducktales.
Yeah.
And let's fucking talk about it.
Let's start with TV. Let's start with Ducktales.
Because I love, what is it? There's a country, I'm going to say it's one of the Scandi countries where they don't use the term millennial.
Okay.
They're called the Ducktales generation.
Really?
And I fucking love that because that just keeps the oldies. It's not the young millennials. DuckTales was one of my favorite TV shows growing up.
It was good.
Wonderful. It was cute, age appropriate for me at the time, but action packed. And then the movie, and the theme song of it was perfect.
The video game, I fucking love that video game where you play a Scrooge and you just bounce around on his pogo stick.
It sounds amazing.
Collecting jewels and treasure. It was so good.
Perfect, wonderful 90s-ness.
And it's Hungary that has that too. Yeah.
It calls it the Ducktales generation. It's such an amazing show. However, when you rewatch it as a 42-year-old.
Sorry, how old? Sorry.
As a 42-year-old.
Happy birthday.
It looks dated. It's from the 80s.
The original cartoon, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. late 80s, early 90s. I was looking up the DuckTales generation term.
So it's from it, and it feels very much from the 80s. So and while you can look at it and be like, oh, remember that simpler time?
Yeah.
You only can enjoy it for the nostalgia. You're like, oh, it's a bit naff because it's very kiddie. It's like, whatever.
I mean, TV was different back then because you had to tell stories that were like 12 minutes long, whatever.
So when they did the reboot, they managed to perfectly down your champagne.
Yeah.
It's just so perfect how David Tennant is Scrooge McDuck.
He's great.
All three, Huey, Dewey, and Louie are different people as opposed to the same guy. Going,
one of them
and they're all excellent casting.
Isn't one of them Abed from Community?
One of them's Abed.
Yeah, I love it.
One of them's the guy from SNL. And one of them's the guy from Parks and Rec. And they are so perfectly. And what's her face?
Wendy, is it? Wendy?
Yes. Is Garfunkel or Oates? I don't remember which one. And it's amazing. It's just, and it looks clean and modernized. The music, the intro music is the same music, but different. It's a female singer and it's a little bit different. They change the intro and they make it look like it's coming from a comic book. The animation is similar, but modernized, but it's not CGI or 3D weird shit. It's 2D
animation,
2D animation. The storyline is the same. He has to look after Donald's nephews and he doesn't want to because he's a grumpy rich guy, the guy from the Christmas Carol, all this kind of stuff. And then he's like, oh, I want to go on adventures, all that kind of stuff. The characters, motivations.
Webby, yes.
I don't know, but the voice actor is brilliant. It's perfectly cast. But they capture her spirit of, oh, she's the sweet one, but they make her a little bit crazy and adventurous. The nephews are mischievous and fun, but they're all...
And they all have different personalities.
They're different. They've been evolved to modern times. They obviously have modern technology. And then they go on adventures. And it captures the spirit of the original show perfectly, moves it into the modern era without losing any of that charm. And they modernized it so it's like a continuing story, which they didn't do in the 80s because they had to be seasonal because episodic, so everything could be changed.
Okay.
So they evolved it so that you have a storyline for each, that sort of thing. But they also do really deep cut or really good throwbacks to the original. So they had Darkwing Duck appear in it.
Really? I used to love that show and video game.
But they had it as like, it's a TV show that everybody loves.
Oh.
And the actor playing it was the voice of the original guy.
Oh, you're kidding!
In it. And so then he turns into a bad guy. And so the new Darkwing Duck fights the voice of the
new when there's trouble, you
so
call
they do
DW.
it. So they recast him because he's a younger one, but there's the old guy who
dangerous.
It's all right. Okay. So things like that. They have a little throwback to the Wuzzles at one point, which is a really deep cut. And all these little characters that if you are a crazy 42-year-old, you remember. You're like, holy shit, I remember it. But it doesn't distract from it. It works only within the storyline they want to tell. Yeah.
They're not there for nostalgia's sake.
But they're like, if you recognize it, it's fun. But it shows that bitch, we watched every episode of the show. We watched Darkwing Duck. We know all these characters and we loved it. That's why we're making the show. It's done so faithfully to it. It's perfect. You'll never get a better reboot than that.
Is it still on?
No, it did three seasons and it finished. It had a story arc, big reveal at the end, big dramatic musical end, and that was it. And it's perfect. Lin-Manuel Miranda's in it, and I hate him, but he was brilliant. He was Gizmo Duck in it. Just shut up. It was so fucking good. You'll never get a better one than that.
I've seen a few episodes, and I have liked everything I've seen, and
Were you an
definitely
original
watch
fan?
more.
Did you watch the original show?
I mean, I'm sure I was. I was very young, though. I'm sure I did.
2 years younger.
I mean, I must have if I had like the video game.
It would have been on.
Perfect. So that's a really, really good, a nice happy rant about DuckTales.
It's so good.
It's so good.
Perfect. I'm trying to wait long enough that I can rewatch it and enjoy it all again because it's such a great show.
I didn't realize there was such a through line for those episodes because I will happily watch it.
Yeah.
Adding it to my long list of things.
Magica DeSpella's in it, and it's Catherine Tate as the voice of it. It's fucking brilliant. She's so
really?
good. And It's so 40-year-old humor. Like, it's sarcastic and like quick-witted, but also not. It's so good.
The only reason she's in it is because of David Tennant, probably.
Probably, yeah. But they're great. It's so good. I'm sorry. That's my rant. Like happy rant for a change.
I'm gonna have a happy rant for a second as well now, because you made me think of another cartoon series that had a kind of a reboot, but it was more of a continuation.
Okay.
Have you seen Samurai Jack?
No. I know Samurai Jack, and I feel like I would love it.
Oh, it's so good. I fucking
feel
love
like
Samurai
I would
Jack.
love it.
I mean, if you love Dexter's Laboratory or
I loved all of
Powerpuff Girls, like it's the same creator of that.
Gendy Tartakovsky.
Gendy Tartakovsky. Yeah. And so they did 4 seasons of Samurai Jack. And just for if you're listening and you don't know the premise of Samurai Jack, he's a samurai with a magical sword, I suppose, that is destined to slay the evil demon Aku. And at the very moment before he achieves this, Aku opens a portal, sends him to the far distant future. And so the whole series is he gets given the name Jack. He's in the future, and he takes on the moniker Jack. So he's Samurai Jack with his sword, and he's trying to get back to the past. So he has all this futuristic stuff at his disposal, and most episodes are about him coming so close to actually finding that one portal or that magic spell that can send him back. But then he decides to like save somebody instead, or like gives it away to somebody who needs it more, kind of thing. So he continues on his journey in this futuristic universe to keep trying to get back. And so he's helping people along the way. And then at the end of 4 seasons, they kind of just stopped making episodes. Like, he didn't get a conclusion to this story, and people were like, I don't know if maybe they didn't expect it to be so successful or something. I don't know why, but they never sort of concluded his story. So they came back and brought Samurai Jack back for a 5th season. So not technically a reboot, but it was like 10 years later or so. But it wasn't a revival either, because it was just meant to be like a 5th and final season to this story. And they kind of changed it a bit, because they have him, like, it's 50 years have gone on since the end of the 4th series, and he's older, but he doesn't age, but he's lost his sword, but Aku doesn't know that, so he's not pursuing him anymore. And so there's like a love interest as well who shows up, and she's voiced by Tara Strong, who knows Miss Minutes from You Look at, she's Tara Strong. And so there's like this episode arc where you follow these 2 characters, and there's a conclusion to the story, which I won't spoil, but
thank you, because I think I'd love to watch it. I think it sounds
so
awesome.
good. It's worth it.
Yeah.
And they just did it so well. And it's like all the stuff about, and the cool thing that I like about it as well is it's got that really cool animation style.
It looks amazing.
Like,
it was so good.
Before all this, it's called cell shading. Before all the cell shading became a big thing, they like Gendy Tartakovsky did that with his, like, he had like thick black lines for like the outlines of things, and it was just such a cool look, and it's so cool, and it's such a good. I would rewatch that as well in a heartbeat.
Let's do a rewatch. That sounds great. First time rewatch.
Yeah. And like the apathy, and it was like a Cartoon Network kind of show. So like the seasons are like maybe only 10, 12 episodes long or whatever. But yes, very, very good show.
Yay!
And we will have future episodes about certain cartoons, TV shows, if you want to.
Yeah.
Dear listener, if you have
I'm happy to do a whole I'm definitely going to do a whole DuckTales episode.
A DuckTales episode?
Absolutely.
That'd be great. If dear listener, you want to hear a DuckTales episode, let us know by writing in into incompletegeekspodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you, or get in touch on TikTok or Instagram. Our handles there are Incomplete Geeks. Give us a like while you're there, and follow us up and chat with us. Hi there, dear listener. John here. Just interrupting your podcast for a second to let you know that at this point in the record, we took a break. We stopped the microphones. We were using new microphones, so we're not quite used to them. We took a break to refill our drinks, empty our bladders, and when we came back from the break, turns out we are incomplete podcasters as well as incomplete geeks, because we didn't actually turn the microphones back on when we started to talk again about reboots. So we don't actually have that footage. However, we did think that we might do something like this. So we actually have a backup microphone that was set just a little bit further from where we were. but it caught everything. So you may notice that for the rest of the episode, the sound is a little bit different, but it's still us. It's still there. It's not something weird with your speakers or anything. It is just us being professionals, like we always are. So thanks for listening. Without further ado, here is the rest of the episode.
And we're back.
You were gone?
No.
Just kidding.
Oh.
Why?
So carrying on from animated things,
You've got a lot of animated things.
I have a lot of animated things to talk about. I'm going to start with the one that I've just finished. Is He-Man.
Okay.
So this has been rebooted twice now. And I've just finished the new series, the latest series of the Kevin Smith reboot.
Kevin Smith did a reboot of He-Man.
So the original came out in the 80s, 83, I think the original series was, which is the one that I love. But again, it's a perfect example of, I loved it. I loved it more than anything in the world. The He-Man and She-Ra, I love them more than anything.
Yeah.
You watch them now, and you're like, ugh. Okay.
Yeah. It's all nostalgia then, isn't it?
It's 40 years old, and like it's...
Shut up.
It's all
40.
So are you.
I mean, I was born in 83, so I guess
there you go.
And I am 40.
Shocking. Do those maths. So it was a perfect kind of potential property to reboot because all of us are at the time were in our 30s, 20s, because there have been 2 reboots. So it could have worked. So they did one in the 2000s where they rebooted it for like 4 seasons or whatever. And the animation was amazing. It looked really good. It just didn't work.
Yeah.
It was weird. It was so like they did lots of poses and like dramatic.
And this was like with the early noughties kind of thing.
Yeah, I was at uni, so I'd say about 2003, 4. It looked great, and I was super excited because the characters looked really faithful, but they'd been kind of like 2000-ified. It's 20 years on, so you could make them look a little bit better. Did
it feel like it was still did it exist to promote a toy range or something?
I guess so, but again, it would have been appealing to 20-year-olds because we were old enough to remember it.
Okay,
it felt clunky. It was... The 80s cartoon was very... Obviously, it's a toy first that was then made into a cartoon.
Yeah.
The reboot, it felt clunky and plastic, and then in season 3 or whatever the Snake Lords showed up, and so He-Man got new armor with extendable grappling arms. You're like, are you fucking kidding me?
That was a bit too far for you.
I'm 22 years old. I'm not gonna buy a toy, maybe. So it could have worked really well. It just didn't. It felt like they were doing it just for the looks and the vibes. It just didn't work. A couple of years ago, Kevin Smith rebooted it again.
A reboot.
Masters of the Universe Revelations.
Okay.
Starring Sarah Michelle Gellar as Teela.
Really?
Yes.
It was definitely like a reboot, like a
It is a reboot. So both of these are 100% reboot.
Yeah.
Character names, concepts, the whole story of He-Man, that sort of thing is the same, but each time it's like restart, like we start from the start every time. So it's 100% a reboot for both of those. So the latest reboot, so Sarah Michelle Gellar was Teela, and it kind of shifted it that it focused on her rather than He-Man, which was a good idea. It didn't really work because it just sounded like Sarah Michelle Gellar, which I loved. Yeah, but it sounded like Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Okay,
and I grew up with Teela, which was amazing, badass, kick-ass character who was taught He-Man how to fight and was in anyway. It just didn't work. And again, they've done a continuation of the second series they've just done now. It feels like they did it for this latest season was 5 episodes.
Really? Wait, it's still going then?
It's just finished.
Right. Okay.
Just the finale's just finished. So it felt very much like it was doing it for the looks. So like, oh look, here's this character you remember from when you were a kid, and here's a big fight. Oh, he's gone. Like, it just felt like it was doing it for dramatic moment. Yeah. Oh, He-Man died. Oh, he's back.
Unlike Darkwing Duck, where you have like a reason for it to be a character.
It just felt rushed and rather than wanting to tell a story, it wanted to say, oh, look at this cool character we have the rights to. Look, and I've made it modern. The only thing they did do really well was, oh, I have another one. Oh, sorry, I thought of another one.
That's great.
At the end, He-Man got a new outfit just for the final episode. And because normally He-Man's got a bob from the 80s. Yeah. So in the 2000s, they gave him like a shaggy bob and that sort of stuff. And for this one, it was a shaggy bob. At the end, it turns into like a ponytail pin back thing with it down at the end. So hot.
Like a top knot.
Like very, and it was like, oh, that's very modernized and looks, but still looks. Oh, anyway, that's the only kind of thing they did right. Apart from having Susan Eisenberg as a sorceress, but they didn't use her enough. Yeah, it felt like they were doing it for moments rather than for a longer story. Unlike, I'm going to quickly go into this.
Yeah, do it. I think we should finish off the animation stuff.
Oh, I've got so many more. Okay, go ahead. Unlike
She-Ra? Okay, yeah. Because when I asked a few friends about what reboot works and why, and what didn't work and why, people were like, She-Ra was great.
She-Ra?
She-Ra?
This is a drunk rant, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
She-Ra, the reboot was great.
Okay, yeah.
And there are very few things in life that I love more than She-Ra. I have her sword tattooed on my forearm. She's stickers everywhere. I love the 80s original. She's what I grew up with. Amazing. And a lot of people didn't like the reboot because they made her younger and less sexy. Like, she didn't have high heels and a miniskirt on. She had shorts on. And people were like, oh, she's not sexy. It's like, she's a teenage girl. That's the whole point of the story. All right. Anyway, we're forgetting them. So I love the original so much. But the Netflix version, just the creator, Noelle, clearly wanted to tell a story. She had a longer, both with Netflix. He-Man was on Netflix as well.
Mm-hmm.
She clearly had longer to tell the story. It was 4 or 5 seasons. It was longer, and there was an end point, and she took so much care and love with these characters, which are completely different from the original, but that worked. It was such an honor to the originals, and it took its time with really modernizing it, making it all about the girls and stuff that was, because in the 80s it was so girly, like it's just her and her multicolored girls, and the modernization of it was this, and it's 40 years later.
And you're talking about She-Ra and the Princesses of Power.
Princesses of Power. Because originally it was She-Ra, Princess of Power.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's the Princesses of Power. And it just looked really...
It's like everybody's a slayer.
But they were all princesses. Glimmer was a princess in the original fucking series. She was the leader of the rebellion until Adora came up. It's like, I'm going to be leader. And Glimmer was just fine with it.
Oh, right.
Anyway, you know what I mean.
You're talking to the listeners, not me.
They know what I fucking mean. The story with Catra. Catra was like a bad guy in the original show, but she was in the comics. Oh, the way they drew out their relationship, and you saw the backstory of when Adora was in the Horde, which you never got in the original. It was just they took the original premise and these characters and like, let's go more. Let's do more and explore with these grown-ups that are watching it rather than kids.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And it was so good. And they even did an episode where like they were flashing through different realities or different flashbacks. Okay. And they were all in the original outfits. Oh, and they had the original music played at the end. And I was like, they're like, what the hell is this? And it was very much you're all watching this in your 40s. And you love it, and we all squealed, and it was great. It was done, really beautifully.
But I'm asking now, like, the question...
Everyone was gay. Everyone in that show was gay.
Oh, really?
Everyone was gay. Bo's parents were 2 gay men. She-Ra ended up with Catra. Everyone was lesbianic. It was amazing.
Oh, fantastic.
So queer.
Was it like would you call that like a queer show, like made by queer people?
It was a queer creator, so I feel like it was very much a queer show. And I guess that's also why people didn't like it. But brilliant. It was wonderful. People with different body shapes, different colors. It was, great. It was a lovely, lovely modernization and reboot.
So it's made for people who are now in their 40s, whatever, to appreciate the history. But is it accessible to children
100%,
as well?
100%. Okay. It's also a thing that you can be like, I watched a version of this when I was a kid. How fun it was. They know that the parents, the 40-year-olds, are choosing
something you can watch with your children.
Yeah, what are you going to watch? Like, no, let's watch a She-Ra.
Okay. Fun. I mean, I've never seen... you know what? people are always amazed when I tell them that I've never seen He-Man or She-Ra. I just wasn't that age. I was just a tiny bit too young when it came out. So I was more like the Nickelodeon, Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers kind of generation when I was younger. And I just missed like He-Man and...
Because I must have watched reruns of it. And I wasn't on Desert Island, so we got stuff.
That makes sense, yeah.
So, BA missed out.
I did, yeah. But I mean, but the way you talk about it, I might like that as well. Because it sounds like, I think there should be more queer produced cartoons like that already. Like,
it wasn't an afterthought. It was great.
We're gonna have an episode about Steven Universe, and that's totally a queer show.
It's very similar, but
yeah. Cool. Any other cartoons?
I have tons, but what do you want to?
Well, so I mean, we were talking about before. I can take this in two different directions.
You go.
Can you have a flashback, a reboot, that is based on like a TV show? So you have a TV media that is based on something that is not TV show or film related. I'm thinking about Sherlock.
Yes.
So do you call it a reboot? It's not based on anything. It's based on the stories of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Like, do you call that, is it a reboot? What is it a reboot of? The Basil Rathbone films? Like, is it a reboot of, I can't think of anybody else who played Sherlock, but like, I'm talking about the recent Benedict Cumberbatch.
I feel it's a reboot.
Yeah.
It does, because there's been TV shows? Like old films, films and TV shows.
So many.
Yeah, then I feel if you're counting Andrew Garfield as a reboot, it's the Spider-Man.
Oh, right, okay. I was like, when did he play Sherlock?
If you're counting that, that's adapted from comic book.
True. But yeah,
it got its, a lot of worldwide success from.
But I mean, like Andrew Garfield, you can say is a reboot of not just it's an adaptation of a comic book story, but it's also a reboot of the Sam Raimi films with.
So that's what I would say for Sherlock. It's an adaptation of Arthur Conan Doyle's text, but it's also a reboot of all these films and TV shows that people watched for years.
Okay, I get it. So
it's media that people watched, and they've rebooted it for the modern age.
And did you know as well? Like, there's also an adaptation that I don't think was over here very much, but it was called Elementary, which is a TV show.
I watched every single episode. It was a lockdown show for me.
Okay.
During lockdown. Lucy Liu,
as she's Watson, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
And Johnny Lee Miller. So like that's another sort of reboot, I suppose.
Yeah, it's
and
rebooting the universe. Yeah.
The Benedict Cumberbatch Sherlock show has a lot of shit wrong with it. I ended up hating that show, and I'm not going to get into it because it's not worth it. I mean, I could because it's fucking it's rantable. It's so rant-worthy.
If you would like
that show,
I'm happy to do a whole.
Oh my god,
let's do a whole episode about Sherlock.
Oh my god, can we have an episode of a drunk rant about Sherlock?
Rant about Sherlock because I have a lot to say about Moffat. So
oh my god, me too.
He does a lot right and then a lot wrong.
Can we have a drunk rant episode about Stephen Moffat?
Is he homosexual?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
If he was, that would be perfect.
I mean, I can.
I thought he was a homosexual.
I mean, I have to.
Alexa, what's his name?
Stephen Moffat.
Is Stephen Moffat a homosexual?
According to Wikipedia's list of gay, lesbian, and bisexual people, Stephen Mulhern is straight.
No, wrong one. She didn't get me.
I like
the list of gay.
The list of gay. List of gay.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I mean, I'm upset that all you have to do is go to like the Wikipedia page and go straight down to personal life. And if it's like so-and-so is gay, then that's how you know. Stephen Moffat doesn't have one then. He's an atheist.
Yay!
Anyway, unknown. I don't think so though. Anyway.
I think he is. I'm going to spread that rumor.
If you want us, dear listeners, to do an episode about Stephen Moffat.
Yeah.
I mean, don't bother writing in because we're going to do it anyway.
I think, probably.
Fucking hell. Ugh. So anyway, Sherlock is a reboot, and it had that's another that and Elementary. I'm assuming is a reboot where it takes original material and it adapts it, modernizes it. I don't know about Elementary, but Sherlock had some CGI elements in it with the technology, whatever, telling stories like the Hound of the Baskervilles episode, where that's
Russell Tovey.
Russell Tovey, who is a gay.
He is a gay.
And where was I going with this? So like the the original story is really dated, obviously, but like now you adapt it into a modern version where it's a mechanical hound or whatever, whatever. So that is, even though Sherlock as a show is a bit shit, like it actually adapted it in a good way.
They did a film.
Who did a film?
Robert fucking Downey Jr.
Oh yeah, the film with Jude Law as well.
Yeah.
They did 2 films.
Did that come out before?
Yes.
Benedict?
Yes. It came out.
Then it's definitely a reboot.
There you go. Yeah, fine. And the reason it's available is because it's in the public domain.
Yeah, you don't have to pay for it. Yeah.
No. So we can make a Sherlock Holmes reboot. We're not going to do that.
I do love the original.
I mean,
stories.
yeah. So yeah, that's an example. And actually, I'm going to continue on because I forgot about this connection as well. Because Steve Moffat did a few seasons of Doctor Who as well.
Did he?
Yes, he did. And that's the other reason we can complain about him. Because what he did to that show just fucking riles me. Okay. I'm doing a fucking rant about that. Oh my God, we found my thing that I want to rant about. I have thoughts about his tenure as showrunner of Doctor Who. Anyway.
I really like that I'm not the full bitchy one this time.
Oh my God.
Go, John, go!
All we had to do was find out what it was. Just to rant about. It is, yeah. So anyway, Doctor Who. We're so glad that Russell T Davies is back. He's going to be back. We talked about this Doctor Who on the show before. But when it was revamped, I think they call it a revamp, actually. Because it's not a reboot. The show, actually, you know what? I think at the time they didn't know. I think when they came on board, I think 2004 or 2005, with Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper as the Doctor and his companion, they didn't know.
Tennant.
No, this is before.
Before Tennant.
This is, okay.
Is he the round-headed guy?
Yes. He's the northern one. And
I've never seen an episode in my life.
And he's like, they're like, why do you sound northern? And then Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor is like, lots of planets have a north. Anyway, it's hilarious. So, brief history of Doctor Who. So, it's on 20 odd years, whatever. It ends in the late 80s with Sylvester McCoy as the Doctor, who you might know from
the curly-haired one.
No, that's Colin Baker. So
yes.
Sylvester McCoy he played Radagast the Brown in the Hobbit films. He's the other wizard.
I know who Radagast the Brown is, but I can't picture his face. Carry on.
So when that finished, the BBC just kind of said like, yeah, we're done doing this. And they tried to revamp it, reboot it, I suppose, as a they made a TV movie and set it in San Francisco. And what they did was they had because the Doctor regenerates. So they had the Doctor and his nemesis, the Master, appear as cameos, and they regenerated into Paul McGann and Eric Roberts. And anyway, they have this adventure which is set in San Francisco. They have a really American companion, whatever. It was a TV movie. It didn't do very well. It was the early 90s, whatever. And so that was it. And then Russell T Davies, who had done work on Queer as Folk and other TV shows and had done very well, he said, I want to reboot this. And they didn't know if they were going to make it a reboot or a revamp. And they kind of just they brought in Christopher Eccleston, who only played the Doctor for one season. And it was a smash. It was a success. And these people, because of nostalgia, they're like, I love this show. And actually he's telling really good stories that we miss. He's bringing back, actually, you know what? He is bringing back aliens that were in the old version of the show. And it was a hit. And then when David Tennant came on from season 2, it just grew and grew and grew until fucking Stephen Moffat took over. Catherine Tate was in it. She was the best companion of the new series by far. Fight me in the comments below. And it was good. And they decided at the end that actually, no, it wasn't a reboot. It was just a revival, a revamp, because they ended up calling Christopher Eccleston's Doctor the 9th Doctor, because Sylvester McCoy was the 7th incarnation and Paul McGann was the 8th, etc. So there you go. So that's another one where it's not quite a reboot, but it was at the time. He thought about it at the time, but it was done. It was too successful for its own good.
That had to be continuation. I got a couple more.
Yeah, go on.
Let's go. Thundercats.
Again, yes, another show that I was just slightly too young for.
Has been rebooted twice.
Yeah.
Both bad.
Right, okay.
Again, Thundercats was such a product of its time. It was the quintessential 80s cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
It was so camp. Japanese animation, the first time they've ever seen that, the great theme songs, the dramatic action stuff. It was, again, my childhood. Again, I have it tattooed on my forearm.
You do.
It was brilliant. Again, but if you watch it, a lot of them you're like, oh.
Yeah, nowadays.
That doesn't really make sense. What? Whatever. Because it was the 80s and they were like, this Flamistan, whatever. There we go. It's
what? Flamistan?
So they were trying to reboot it in, again, the 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
I think they just took it too seriously. The same thing with the He-Man one. They tried to make it serious, which is good because we don't want it to be like goofy. We wanted it because we're older now. You know?
But the old series was goofy.
The old series was action. It wasn't silly.
It was like 80s action.
Yeah, it was 80s action, so it wasn't silly. So they tried to do that. And when you push that to 2000s action, it's too different. It was too jarring.
Yeah.
They did have the original voice of Lino play Lino's dad.
Right.
Wonderful touch.
Okay.
But they pushed it too far. They changed the essence of what it was. Like, they weren't aliens coming to Earth. Mm-hmm. They were just on their home planet. Mumra, which was the main villain, if you remember from our Thundercats episode.
Our Thundercats episode 40. Go back and listen if you haven't done already.
Please do. It's one of my favorites.
It's a good episode, yeah.
Mumra was this ancient Egyptian priest who sold his soul to a demon cult and became a decrepit, disheveled, ever-living mummy source of evil. He was dripping spittle and wrapped in mummy. He was disgusting, magical, weird, ancient. Anyway. In the new one, he looked like that, but he sounded like a pedophile. I'm going to be honest.
Oh, God.
And they gave him a fucking tank and a spaceship?
Hang on. What does a pedophile sound like?
If you watch the show and you'll know what I mean.
Oh, right, okay.
It was the voice actor. Same with the He-Man one. The voice actor couldn't get it. The 1980s.
I think you remember you mentioning this in the episode about
power in his chest of the original one, just willing to fully make a fool of himself and scream and be this decaying creature. And the other one kind of took the. It sounded like a pedophilic headmaster.
Oh, God.
That kind of thing. And then they give him a tank, and he was in a spaceship because they're like, oh, they're not on an alien planet. They just didn't keep the, they 2000s did too much. It felt plastic and shit.
Would you say that this was an example of a reboot that did it for the wrong reasons? Was it pulling too hard on like nostalgia or
100% pulling on nostalgia? And again, like He-Man did it for the moments and for the looks. It did it for the looks. The animation was gorgeous. The redesigns of these characters. Panthro was Kevin Michael.
Richardson?
Kevin Michael, which one? Not the TV one, the voice guy.
Yes.
Brilliant voice. Huge guy. It was amazing. All this kind of stuff. It was great. But the story went nowhere. And the plot was like, oh, we're kind of like, here. What are you doing? It was naff. It didn't have any, I don't. I tried so many times. I was like, it could have been good. And I was so disappointed.
That's a shame. I do remember actually thinking like Tigra is the one who does the voice of Tigra is the Vox Machina guy.
No way. I love Vox
Machina. The DM from the Critical Role series.
The long hair
guy, yeah.
Oh, I love Vox Machina. Oh, that's disappointing because he wasn't good as Tigra. They also rebooted it again.
Oh dear.
Recently called Thundercats Raw.
Oh yeah.
It was made Teen Titans reboot. Teen Titans is another reboot.
There you go.
Anyway, we can't keep going on. Where it was for the kids.
Yes.
It's for my brother who's 45 years old, sorry, Neil, to show to his kids. And it's like, all this kind of cartoon stuff, which
so makes not in the same kind of thing.
But they're the same names, it's the same concepts. And they use, how in the 80s and 80s cartoons, they have like 6 pieces of music that they use over and over again.
Yeah.
So like, oh, bad guy, That's his music.
Action scene.
Whimsical. That music. Yeah. The reboot uses all the same music. So while my 8-9-year-old nephew is like laughing at the fart jokes, they're using all these such familiar nostalgic sounds that my brother's like, oh my God, it's the same from when I grew up and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So in a way, that's nice they did it, but it's just like Mum-Ra is called Bum-Ra. Like, oh! Because it's for kids, and kids nowadays like stupid shit like that.
You're just very loud.
Sorry. So
fun.
It's a bad one.
The only thing I don't know about Thundercats is that there was a big uproar. There's a big fervor when it was like rumored that they were going to make a live action. Remember this?
Won't work. Please stop.
No, it wouldn't. But like, it was
Please don't. Please don't. Universe, please don't make it.
This was like early in the internet days where they were like fantasizing about who would play what.
Yeah. Taylor Leone was going to be there. Oh God, awful.
Yeah.
All of it. Awful.
Brad Pitt was going to be Tiger, I think.
All of it would be so horrible and creepy.
But yeah. But a good one,
which is also the same people who produced She-Ra, DreamWorks, Voltron, which I watched as a kid. And if you rewatch it, man, it's awful.
Okay.
The 80s one, you're like, it's so Japanese animation, and it's just like, run, scuffle,
right.
Nothing happens. It's bonkers, but I was obsessed with it as a kid.
It's robots, basically, right?
Oh my God, giant robots. We're going to do an episode about giant robots.
Sure.
But again, like you rewatch it, you can't rewatch it because it's awful.
Yeah.
They rebooted it with DreamWorks rebooted it for Netflix.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. And it went on for like 7 seasons.
Yeah.
They had a story because the original had no fucking character. They're like, oh, here's like 4 guys and a token woman.
Yeah.
Go. That's the depth of their character base.
Right. Okay.
That's all they had to limit themselves. So the stories they came up with, it was so well written, and it just built and built for 7 fucking seasons, getting bigger and bigger. It was brilliantly done because it didn't have to do a lot to honor the original. It had to do a few names and a few colors and a few things, and then it could just do whatever you want with these giant magical space robots.
Oh, fun!
And it was fucking great.
And the thing is,
a little bit gay.
Yeah,
because I'm gonna say the Black Lion, but he was a white guy.
The Black Lion.
The Black Lion, because there are 5 lions.
Yeah.
The guy who flew the Black Lion, he's white. Sorry.
Okay.
But when they flashed back or whatever to, he had his partner was a man. Like they just had him in the show with him, and they were talking about going off to space. Like, there's his husband, which is a guy.
Oh, that's fun.
Didn't make a thing of it. It's like, oh yeah, sure, off we go. Lovely.
That's fun.
Lovely, great, fucking great reboot. Please, more of that. You go.
I have a fun one to talk about, which I don't remember how I got into it, but I just really, really, really wanted it to be a good show, and it just failed all the time. Have you ever seen a show called The Tick? You've heard of it? You've heard of it at least.
I've heard of it.
So I think that...
Was it Kronk who was in it?
Okay, yes. Kronk, Patrick Warburton, was the original TV show. I forget now where. It was a live action one. Yeah. There was a cartoon as well.
Yeah.
But I think oh my God, I should have looked this up beforehand. But I think it was all based on a comic book anyway. Yeah. Where he's just like a bumbling sort of oafish big guy. And Patrick Warburton, with his voice,
he just is
with his size, the perfect The Tick. And it was so funny because it's the same kind of comedy as Emperor's New Groove, where it's just like a bit silly. He bumbles and he does it so well. Mm-hmm. And you have this his partner who's like the moth. What's his name? I forget his name. It's like not Everett, but I forgot. The guy. He has like a moth suit. It's bizarre. It's just bonkers, and it's so good because it works. And it's I don't know why it didn't get enough attention or didn't get enough sort of viewership or whatever. He plays a live action Tick. It's just a big fucking blue rubber suit with like antenna that kind of move to their own accord. And it was so funny. And I don't know whatever happened to it, but I never saw the end of it because because it just vanished completely. Yeah. And it made me fall in love with Patrick Warburton and his whole sort of, this looks like a, they're like in a sewer at one scene. He's like, "Oh, look, a Snickers bar is floating by." It's so dumb. It's so dumb. And somebody must have liked it because they rebooted it, proper reboot, with on Amazon Prime with Peter Serafinowicz, which I don't know how I'm probably saying it wrong. He's the guy. Okay, I always tie it back to the MCU, but he plays the one of the Nova fighters. He's a very comedic actor. He again is quite tall. He's very bumbly. If I showed you a picture of him, you'd be like, oh yeah. His Nova fighter character, whatever, appears in the What If episode where Nebula's on Nova as well, which I know you want to forget, but he does the voice as well. I'm going to show you a picture of him and you'll be like, oh yeah.
Is that the guy from Step Brothers?
No, that's John C. Reilly. That's the other one. This guy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I told you you'd say that.
I have no idea where I've seen him. I'm trying to think.
So he plays the Tick. He's the Tick.
Is he American?
I think so. Although I
feel like I've heard him be English.
He was in a film, with, who was it? I want to say, was it Melissa McCarthy who she plays a spy? Like an accidental spy? Like he's in it as like either a British spy or a Russian spy. I don't remember exactly. Was it Melissa McCarthy?
Well, there's Spy with Melissa McCarthy.
That might have been it. Anyway, he's quite talented and he plays the Tick very, very well. And he's, again, just very bumbling, very oafish and messing things up a lot. But the reboot, which I don't even remember if it was like 2 or 3 seasons, it just doesn't work. There's way too much exposition. There's way too much, let's put in this character, let's have this funny thing happen, let's put in this character. And they're just trying to do silly things for silly sake and not letting the characters just be the Tick and Mothman. I forget his name, I'm sorry. And
it's not Mothman.
No, he just goes by his name, his human name, which I think is
Aaron.
Like, it might be. For some reason, I want to think it starts with an E, but I could be wrong. Anyway, I'm so disappointed. I really, really want. I tried. I could watch that show for as long as I could, and that just kind of just didn't work out, and I was really disappointed by it. I mean, I could be a good The Tick.
You'd be a good
The Tick. Yeah. And, I'm good at being dumb because I am dumb. Yeah. So that's a disappointing one. Shall we? You have one more to talk about. No, you have two to talk about. And then move on to our final one. Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God, I completely forgot. My husband would have killed me. Oh my God. Charmed.
Let's talk about Charmed.
Let's talk about Charmed because it's perfect because we might be talking a little bit more about Charmed coming in future episodes.
We have an episode planned. Hopefully.
I love Charmed. Charmed is the sister show to Buffy.
It is.
They were on at the same time. Shannon and Sarah are still best friends. It was the same sort of time. They're on the same network, same sort of vibes. I talked about Charmed in the Buffy episode, so y'all know I love Charmed.
Go back and listen to the Buffy episode.
Please do. And it must have been
episode 29.
No.
I had to get it in there.
Episode 29. Listen to the Buffy episode. No, like 2 years ago. No, 3 years ago. A couple years ago. Whatever. They did a Charmed reboot. So,
and I did not know about this.
You didn't know about the original Charmed?
Well, I did know about it, which we'll get to. I mean, if and when we do a Charmed episode, I will be very quick.
If we do a Charmed, right? If we do,
I have such a limited knowledge of Charmed because I did appreciate it, but I think because it was on at the same time as Buffy, I just sort of didn't watch it. I was like,
fully get that.
Only enough space in my head for one fantasy type.
There tend to be people who choose one or the other
with a rock in credits intro. Rock song.
Yes.
They both have that.
Yeah, very similar.
Very similar.
So they did a reboot, and there were so many ways they could have done this. And the original cast have all come out and said, what the fuck? What a load of shit.
Really?
Why didn't they talk to us? Why weren't we included? Why didn't they do? Because they could have 100% done a revival, a continuation.
Yeah.
They could have worked like with what we were talking about with Buffy. They could have, this universe was enormous. It's just, witches exist in the world. Done. You could have 100% done that and acknowledged like, oh, these witches, they lived over there. But they kind of, I don't know if it is a reboot, but they are not the same characters.
Right, okay. There's still 3 of them, though, I'm assuming.
There's 3 sisters with the same power.
For now.
Just don't get into that. With the same powers.
Okay.
The same concept. So they have a white lighter, which is their guardian angel. You know, they use all the same terminology, elders, all that kind of stuff. It's the same thing, but they're not the same characters.
Yeah.
So it should have been a revival, like the same universe.
Yeah.
Like they could have been like, oh, we're other 3 sisters with, oh, one has telekinetic powers. It's like, yeah, bitch, load of witches do. That's
Are they the same names? Like, are they the same characters?
No, completely different. But so like, it's not a reboot, but it also, because it doesn't acknowledge the existence and it changes a lot of the rules.
Okay.
And the lore in that world, it can't exist. Those 2 concepts.
Right.
It can't be a continuation.
So what is a reboot? Because it kind of
can't be a reboot because it's not the same characters, but it's not a revival because it's just using the same name and the same. It's just shit. Basically.
Okay. So that was
shit.
My next question then was going to be: is it shit?
Shit. It's shit.
Yeah.
The only good thing they do, which is because they obviously the cast is in the original one all white because it was the 90s.
Yeah.
So they make them all women of color, and I don't know what colors they are because one no because in the so in the original, like, they have 3, 1 dies, and so a new younger one comes in, so they have 1, 2, and a half sister, right?
Okay.
As a youngest sister.
Yes.
In this one, they're like, oh, they have 2, and they find out, oh, the mum had a baby before them, so the eldest sister is a half sister.
Okay. Fine.
We'll talk more about this another time. But the eldest sister is black.
Okay.
And the best actor in it. She's gorgeous. She's great. But then but the other 2 are Hispanic.
Okay.
The mum, they speak in Spanish and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, hang on. I didn't know about this.
But then it's later revealed that the youngest sister is also not half sister. She's a full sister. So she's black. And I'm like, honestly, I'm sorry if I'm racist. I couldn't tell. But the actress actually is black. It doesn't matter. I'm sorry if that's awful.
Oh my God, I didn't.
It was a very melting pot of ethnicities. It doesn't matter. What is interesting that they do well is they do the spells in Spanish. Rather than let the object of objection become but a dream and cause seem to be unseen, which in the original is like, oh,
not fun.
It's cheesy and that's shit, you made it up. Whereas when they say it in Spanish, us basic white bitches like, oh,
exotic,
expensive. It sounds so much cooler, and like they're chanting in Spanish around that sort of stuff. You're like, that's cool. Everything else is shit.
Okay.
Like, the youngest one wears like so many belts and so many accessories, so much stuff, and they're like trying to make it, and like she's the same powers. It's a mess, and they don't know what they wanted to do with it. They just wanted to like, oh, you guys remember Charmed? Here's another Charm.
Yeah, we'll do. Yeah. Oh my God, I hope they don't do that same thing with Buffy. Do you want to hear something funny? I think I've seen an episode of this. I know I said I didn't know about the Charm that it existed. I'm sure I've seen something.
They even do it where the youngest sister who has psychic powers falls in love with a half demon. That's the same story as the original Charm, but it's not the same characters. It's just lazy and shit.
Yeah,
it's the most lazy shit network TV-ish thing.
Yeah,
that was Charmed.
Yeah,
and it's whatever.
Well, we'll talk more about it when we do an episode, but that is terrible. Is it still on?
No!
Okay.
Absolutely
was it like what TV network was it on? Do you remember? It was some American one.
It's an ABC or a CBS. There's a B in it somewhere.
They all have B's in them, don't they?
Well, the original was on the WB.
They all have B's in them. Anyway, you made me think of another show that's not on my list, but I'm gonna rattle off a few that are honorable mentions. I know. Don't you look at your watch?
I'm just checking what we're doing.
Okay. I watched a few episodes of Law and Order UK.
Oh my God! Yes!
I love that show because it had Freema Agyeman, who plays Martha Jones from Doctor Who. She was great in it. And Jamie Bamber, who is best known for being in another show that I'm going to mention in a second. But like, they are in this show, and I was like, oh, this is quite interesting. Like, I like the sort of the UK aspect of it because
it's not a reboot though.
It is.
No,
the UK version is.
They're not the same characters, so it's just a spin-off.
No, but at least it only lasted for a season, I think.
Yeah.
Because they just...
Which is a success in the UK. Like, you don't need to go that long
That's
for it
true.
to be a success.
But they copied and pasted stories from the American version of the TV show.
It's like Charmed. It's not really a reboot. It's just bad. It's just lazy fucking writing.
They
it's
just
cheap.
They literally...
Shit. Yeah.
I didn't know this, but like they just copied them, and obviously they had to change a few things so it was would work in the UK. Yeah. And I don't know how the judicial and the legal system works in this country, but like the criminal system.
Weights and shit.
But like people didn't really take to it, I suppose.
No.
So I mean that's that, but
that's a fun one because I haven't thought of that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
anyway,
it's not a reboot. It's just shit.
But Jamie Bamber, I only watched it because of her and because he was in Battlestar Galactica, which was that a reboot? Have you seen this one?
No.
Okay.
Tell me more.
Okay, so a sci-fi show based on an older show with the same name, and I think they're the same characters as well. So I'm pretty sure it's a reboot. But it was sort of spearheaded by Ronald Moore, who you may know because he did a lot of Star Trek episodes. I forget which one. I want to say he did a lot of Deep Space Nine ones, but I don't remember. Anyway,
I'll take a word for it.
So he did it, and that was a show where it was such a big hit because the premise was so jaw-dropping. Like these Cylons, these robots, basically destroying 98% of all humanity, and the last 2% is on the run for the first 3-4 episodes. They're just basically like just outrunning the Cylons, and then they finally figure out a way to get a hold of them. And then what's her face? I forget her name. She becomes the president because she's like 35th in line to become president, and she's the only one that they got.
Katie Sackhoff.
No. She plays Starbuck. The other one, she's Martina something.
No, Frontalova. No, that's a tennis player.
What? I mean, no, if I don't look it up now. Mary McDonnell. Mary McDonnell! I didn't even look it up. I think that's her name. Anyway, she's really good. She's so good. Anyway, it had such a good premise. It lasted for 4 long seasons, and then it ended.
It only did 4 seasons?
4 American seasons.
Yeah, but that's good that they didn't. Because I don't know the full story of Battlestar Galactica, but it's a really tight concept, right? The Cylon thing. You don't know who's a Cylon. Is that the thing? Yes.
So that was so intriguing. It was so.
And if you carried it on for like 7-8 seasons, that would get tired or would make mistakes or lost-ify it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they were thinking of when they started it, but it sort of they ended up being like there were 7 Cylons in particular that were like the Uber Cylons, and they had to sort of bring. I don't know. It ended on a very religious bent, which was such a letdown because basically they set up a lot of mysteries, very lost in that way. Mary McDonnell, I was right. Oh yeah, she's well known for being in Dances with Wolves. So she played the president in whatever. Yes. Yeah, and so like a lot of the
Major Crimes. She was in The Closer. Right?
Was she?
Yeah. I loved The Closer.
Me too. I used to watch it with my grandma. We watched
it sounds like a show you'd like to watch with your grandma. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so good. It was so good.
Anyway,
I never watched Major Crimes though.
No, it didn't work. It didn't work without Kira.
Yeah. She was so weird.
Which wasn't a reboot. It was just a continuation.
Spin-off.
Spin-off with every single cast member apart from Kira Sedgwick.
Yeah. That was a term that we haven't mentioned yet today. Anyway, so it set up a lot of mysteries in Battlestar Galactica, and at the end, just for the sake of explaining the mysteries, because they didn't want to do a Lost and leave things unanswered. So they basically were just like, God, angels.
No.
Yep. And I won't tell you like what these mysteries are, but many of them. I mean, one is too many, but there were a couple that was just like, it's just God, heaven, angels, and I was just like, what a slap in the balls. Anyway. Battlestar Galactica, and how about Lost in Space? Let's move on. More honorable mentions. Lost in Space was a reboot. Netflix reboot, wasn't it?
It was a TV show, then it was a film, then it was a TV show.
Oh yeah, it was a film as well with Matt LeBlanc. I used to love that. I used to have the soundtrack to that. So bad.
I didn't watch any of it.
It was so bad. It was fun bad. Like it was cheesy bad.
The new show?
No, the film.
Yeah.
The new show I don't know. I wanted to watch it for a long time, but then it didn't take off.
I don't know. I feel like old people like it.
Yeah.
It feels like a show that like 56-year-old men would like.
It should have been. It looked like it was going to be like interesting at least, because that's a classic. That's a perfect example of what you could do by taking an old show and rebooting it with new technology.
Or is it a perfect example of why would you bother? Like, is the premise really interesting, or are you just banking on old people nostalgia? It's like, oh, I remember that show from the fucking 60s. Who cares?
Maybe it's because there's so many space TV shows.
Is it interesting? And to adapt it to a 2000-something audience from the fucking 60s? I don't even know.
It was quite old, so probably
that's
the 60s.
so quintessentially different. You can't. Yeah. It's too different. I don't know.
I guess what
I haven't seen any of it. So
I guess the original, what really sold people on the original was that sense of spectacle. Like I think it predated Star Trek as well. They hadn't been to the
fucking moon yet. They were really excited about it. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the last sci-fi show that I want to mention is called V. V is a show.
They're like alien lizards.
Kind of, yeah. So basically, it was I think it was a mini-series first.
That chick from Deadpool?
Yes. Okay, so it was remade. It was rebooted into a TV show. The main character was Elizabeth Mitchell. I don't know why I'm blanking on her name because I fucking love her. My favorite character from Lost, Juliet, is the lead character in V. She plays like, so these aliens come to Earth and they say, we come in peace. We want to teach you about all this technology. But then there's like a faction that are like, no, they're evil and they're lizard people, you know. So Elizabeth Mitchell like heads up the side who's like, sure, we'll be your friends. But like on the backside, we're going to do some secret missions, whatever. Marina Baccarin, Deadpool's girlfriend, who's also in Firefly.
She has so much stuff.
She has so much stuff. She plays the ambassador alien who sort of has a daughter that tries to woo Elizabeth Mitchell's son. And so he's on her side, whatever. It had a really good concept, but I'm not sure it went anywhere because they just didn't know. I think, you know what? I don't think this is a spoiler because I don't know if it's true, but I think that the whole concept of the original series was that they were evil. They had evil intentions the whole time. And so I think trying to reboot that TV show, you already know how it's going to end. So it only lasted for 2 seasons, and I'm sad about it because I think she was great. But that's another example of a proper reboot. They took the original story and they rebooted it like a new story, updated technology, modernized it, etc. And it was a good concept and didn't work.
Just didn't land. Shame.
So our final one,
which is a bad one and a good one.
Is it a reboot?
Right. The bad one, yes. The good one, no.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Star Trek. So the bad one.
If you want to listen to our Star Trek episode, go back to episode 1.
Episode...
no, 001. Unimatrix.
Episode Unimatrix 01. We're doing that episode. We got to do more Star Trek stuff.
Yeah.
There's a good and a bad. So the bad version is an actual reboot, was the films. Because they're taking the characters, the names, the concepts, the ideas, and doing whatever the fuck they want. So I did like it at the time, but then the second one, did they do 3?
They did. They ended up doing 3 because they were going to do a fourth one and bring Chris Hemsworth back now that he's famous, and they couldn't agree on. They wanted to pay them less, whatever.
So I liked the first one because I liked JJ and it was fun, but on retrospect, you're like, these are the same names, the same concept. So it's 100% a reboot, right? However, they did the quintessential error of they're like, oh, here's these names and characters we're going to use. We'll do whatever the fuck we want with them. Like, why the fuck is Spock fucking Uhura? And like, what? It's just it's just not in keeping with the nature of the original show. Yeah. And then many shows have been done since then. And they just like, we're just going to make a show and the guy's going to be called Kirk because you recognize it. I think that's what it's done. It just wasn't a sincere, and it could have been. Like, I feel like he knew it. It wasn't a sincere attempt to do it. It was like, I'm going to fuck shit up because I'm J.J. Abrams going to make it weird. Yeah, they made it weird. I think the biggest thing they did... 2 Spocks and he's dead. Whatever. Like, we blow up the planet. Like, fuck you. Like, it's just done... That was a weird decision to blow up the whole planet. It's just done for shot movie value, which I get it.
So it was the right perfectly bad mixture of shock and nostalgia, because you have the shock like blowing up the whole. That's basically genocide of this whole. You know, how would you not go into a complete mental breakdown for the rest of your life? I don't care if you're a Vulcan. But the shock was not. They didn't pull it off really well, and the nostalgia they didn't pull off well at all, because they're banking on you, the viewer, knowing these characters and automatically loving them. People who love those characters love them because they sat through 3 seasons and 6 films. That's why they love the characters. No. You can't throw new actors at these characters and expect people to love them.
And also, super recognizable characters, like who wasn't thinking, it's like, that's that guy from Heroes. Yeah,
that's Heroes guy. That's Chris Pine from whatever he was in. I don't know.
Fuck he was in.
That's what's her face who plays Gamora. You know, that's
like they were so.
Carl Urban who plays
Sexual Urban.
Who plays Judge Dredd.
Super hot. Yeah, like it just.
Simon Pegg. It was done. Shaun of the Dead.
It was done for the looks, for the moves, for the vibes, and not.
The spectacle, yeah.
The spectacle.
Spectacle without substance.
Not done because they're like, we can tell a really cool story because we have it. Well, let's tell the story. It wasn't done faithfully. It was done for cash, and it worked.
Yes.
Because
they made 2 more.
It also did, but it also restarted love for Star Trek. So
I suppose
I disregard it, but also I watched all 3. So shut me up.
I never saw the 3rd one. But the thing is, like,
fucking sucked.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. Sorry if you're listening on headphones.
Separate mics.
But I trust that it sucks. But like the second one, they didn't learn from their mistake. But their mistake, it was good. They just
made shit tons of money, so it doesn't matter.
Like you said, they could have made a great story with these characters, because I mean, as stupid as blowing up Vulcan Homeworld is, that could have started a complete new storyline. What did they do? They fucking remade Khan, who nobody who's watching these new characters.
No one gave a shit about. It's like, oh my god, it's Khan. Twist. Who?
Yeah, exactly. I literally...
You don't look anything like him. You have no connection to the story of... Anyway.
You have no connection to the previous story. No connection to me having seen you. And at the moment, I was watching this movie, a film. I might have said this before on the podcast. I don't care. I'm saying it again. Benedict Cumberbatch has a moment where he's like... Where I forget what they called him. Whatever his name is. Like John Thomas or whatever. And he's like, my real name. And like this slow zoom in. Literally like 5 or 6 seconds. And he's like, Khan. And it's meant to be this big, oh my God, mind-blowing moment. And I was like...
No one gave a shit.
Who?
No, the people watching this...
What the fuck?
The people who knew Khan were not watching this fucking film.
Yeah. And the people who knew Khan either saw it coming or didn't give a shit when it was revealed. And the people who hadn't have that connection with Khan are like, who gives a fuck who you... I don't care who this is.
But who cares? It just... it didn't work.
For me, I was like, oh, it's a name from one of the titles of the previous films.
That was a film, right? And they do the Khan! I knew that from Family Guy. That's it.
And I didn't know that he was a character from a previous episode of the TV show original series. I was like, I don't fucking know. Such a bad decision.
Banked on the wrong audience. They expected their audience to be these people. It's like, that's not... Was anyway.
Yeah, spectacle. Spectacle without substance.
Exactly.
But
I wish I thought of another one as well. One that was on our list of reboots, but it's not actually a reboot, but it rebooted the franchise.
Fair.
Was Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Next Generation.
So after the original series and the films, and I don't even know how long it was between them.
Oh, it was like...
But...
At least 10 years.
Rebooting that franchise
yeah.
with Star Trek The Next Generation changed everything. Like, I can't imagine.
It changed sci-fi.
It changed sci-fi, it changed media. It changed all of us nerd lives forever, because that show did so fucking well and still continues to be probably the most popular, best performing Star Trek show.
Yeah.
A franchise of all time.
Yeah.
Which, I don't even know. Like, I'm curious, like, did people give a shit? They can imagine being out in like 1989 when that came out. It's like, oh, they're going to do a new Star Trek show. Did people weren't nostalgic back then. They were like,
no.
Oh, that's old though. But it worked. It wasn't. It's not even. Sorry.
Well, this is like us talking about how we don't recognize how good something is in the moment because we don't realize what it's.
Yeah.
But because now we had so many iterations of related things after it, we take it for granted.
Yeah.
But you're right. At the time,
Star Trek was probably
something I can't do with Blade Runner.
I was around in 1989, so I do remember that the original series was seen as this cheesy, hammy space show. You're like, ugh, what is this shit?
Oh, the original, yeah.
And Next Gen took the concept of like, we're all obsessed with the idea of space travel and future, all technology, that sort of stuff, and just completely, it wasn't anything like the original show. The way that it was about diplomacy and philosophy and exploration and all that kind of stuff, rather than shoot lasers, space alien that shit. It took the franchise in a completely different direction that's led to all of this stuff. So it isn't a reboot because it's a revival. Yeah, but it rebooted the franchise,
of course. And even then, in 80, it started in 87.
87?
Exactly.
What?
September 87 to May 94, 7 seasons, which was 18 years after the original series ended.
What? 18 years?
Original series ended in 69.
Oh, what the film?
69.
Oh, like the sex pose.
Yeah, not counting the TV show or the films.
So there was some more there. But yes, so it's not technically a reboot, but it 100% rebooted that franchise, and it made everything else Star Trek that we know and love now possible.
Yeah. And even, what I was saying is that even then in 87, it was still an advancement of technology that could do more things.
Massive.
So that's an example of what they did, how they did a reboot, in quotes.
Yeah.
Well,
you could technically say Strange New Worlds is a reboot. It's all the same characters. It's on the Enterprise.
Oh.
Spock.
So which one? Oh, which one's Strange New Worlds?
I know. Sorry to throw in purple. The brand new one with Captain McDaddy, sexy,
right,
and sexy Spock,
Anson Mount McDaddy, who plays Pike, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It just is so bizarre how we have
technically a reboot.
We know how Pike ends up in the story. Yeah,
but that's
which is so bizarre. Huh?
He knows that.
He knows that.
Have you watched this show?
I've never watched Strange New Worlds.
The first episode is good. Okay, that's a reboot.
But hang on. It's not the first one chronologically because the Scott Bakula one was before that, right? Enterprise?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, so that's technically a reboot.
Okay.
I would say.
Well, it's a prequel.
It's a reboot of the pilot episode because Pike was the captain in the pilot episode.
Yes, that's very true. And did you know Gene Roddenberry's wife was the original?
I sure fucking did.
One.
Yeah, Deanna's mom.
And
and the computer voice, Rachel Barrett.
And she continued to be the computer voice forever and ever until she passed away. Well, you know what they could probably do? It's take all of her...
100% could have taken her footage and made her the computer voice for everything.
Yeah!
She has said everything.
She said everything you could possibly want.
That. I don't like her not being the computer voice.
I don't even know who it is now.
Who cares?
Joan. Jake.
Just sucks. Anyway,
so that's good. Ended on a good note. But there's a lot of reboots.
It's more than I thought.
Dear listener, thank you for sticking through with us. But
yeah, there was so many want to know more ones. It was really fun to rant about really, really good ones.
Yes,
and some shit ones as well.
What did we miss out, dear listener?
Yeah, tell us about your favorite or most hated
worst
reboot, revival, continuation.
I know there's some
remake. Oh my god, there's got to be millions. We'll do another episode. We'll do another drunk rant one.
Oh yeah.
Or we'll do like a live, we'll do a live TikTok thing and get drunk and talk about shit stuff there.
That would be great. If you have any ideas, do let us know because we need to know things that we don't know.
What you want to talk about? Let's chat.
How can they get hold of us, Nick?
They can email us, as we've said a couple times already, incompletegeekspodcast@gmail.com.
One more time, that's incompletegeekspodcast@gmail.com.
You can also reach out to us on the socials, on Instagram and TikTok @IncompleteGeeks.
While you're there, give us a like, follow us, like this episode as well because it helps out every little bit. Tell your friends. We have fun doing this because we are Incomplete Geeks. We enjoy it. We do miss a lot of stuff. We're sorry if we missed anything or got anything wrong because, as you might know, we're not complete geeks.
But we are working on it.
Thanks for listening.
Bye. Bye. It's difficult for it to feel like a natural conversation with a microphone that looks like a giant dong in my face.
Just gotta get used to that, man.